So here is my sprint demo for the umpteen ethos items that we had for PI3.2. The only item that's in the done column right now is the setting up the city integration in dev. And it turns out that Magdalena and I did that actually earlier. Looking at the interface, you can see that there's a city configuration here. Maybe you can see it, but it may not mean anything to anybody. But you can see that it's running on a regular basis. It ran, today is Friday the 11th. It ran yesterday 11 p.m. If we click in here and see how it's scheduled to execute, we can see that it's been running daily at those times. If we look at the schedule for it, it's running every day, apparently since 2016, which is kind of interesting since this instance didn't exist until 2 weeks ago. The other thing I wanted to see was, is there a way to find out what training data was imported? We don't get a lot of information from this screen here. It tells us that we added 12 and had problems with 14, but what does that really mean? So I wrote a little custom search to find items that had been imported by that one for a specific day. I just picked 2.1, and we can see that there's a bunch of different data that's added in here. So it looks like data is actually being loaded on a regular basis. So yay. All right, so moving on to the next one, which is making sure that the CTSI views were created. And we had some questions about whether or not the instance was there, and it turns out that I was incorrect, that they are not created in a separate instance. There's just a selections of views that are defined, and then there's users that the AHC folks use to access it, and those users only have access to these views. The things we had to change in the views were that certain items in the certain columns had changed names on various tables. But those have been fixed up, and I just wrote a quick thing that says just show me a count of each of those views. These are the 7 ones, and we run it. The first one takes a little bit because it's putting a lot of information back together, but eventually it will show us that we have data in all the views. So we got data for each of the 7. The other thing I was going to show y'all is that if we look at how it's defined, script view as create to a query window, one of the interesting things is that the custom extension's name has changed. It is no longer IRB submission custom extension. It is now just custom extension. This is a standardization that Click put across everything somewhere between version 8 and version 9, so that instead of having these specific names of, like if you had the ancillary review and the ancillary review custom extension, now it's just ancillary review and custom extension. Kind of makes it nice for when you're performing these joins across tons and tons of tables, as we are doing here. All right, so moving back, the next one, oh, that one is still sitting in the in process column because we're waiting on the testing, and I'm not exactly sure how we get that tested. We should probably feel free to move that forward because I think it's done until CTSI or AHC tells us that it needs some changes. So if Brett, if you want to move that to done, I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. All right, the next one looking at is to apply the base changes to version to the test 9.2. So I have kind of gotten set up here, and the way that we can tell that that's working is we can pretty much bring up any study and we don't break. Because there were pages that were broken, there were data that was showing up with an error on the top of it. Let's go up. I was able to do a smoke test where I was able to create a study going through the whole process from start to finish of creation. And one of the things we would find is there would be errors in this section up here. We're not seeing any red text. If I edit the study, I can go in, I can advance from page to page, like if I start at basic info. I can go on to the pages that used to break, specifically drugs, because the drugs thing changed, and that's all fine. One other thing we've also got going here is if we go back to study scope, we can see that the Encore integration is here and working. Well, let me just say we know that it's connecting to Encore and it's not breaking the way we want to. So if I were to say, how do I say that? We know that we're getting the correct error messages back. So if I were to enter an invalid protocol number here, we would expect to see a message that says, hey, I talked to Encore and I couldn't find that protocol number called protocol number. Could you check that? So I've tried to save that. It runs the validation on the page. Up at the top it says, the protocol number entered does not match a valid protocol in Encore. Please enter a valid one. If we recall from when we were doing development on that, we would have seen a message that says we could not connect to Encore. So yay! So that system's working, or that part's working. I think we can probably move that one to done. We're still waiting on some integrations, but Oris has told us specifically the Peoplesoft Hr Integration, HR and Finance one, and Training Hub, but that's taking some work from other teams, and we'll look at that when I get back. But they're not in a hurry to get those. They are more interested in getting this stuff taken care of. So that's that one. All right, the next thing was the department viewer issue, and I'll just kind of show that real quick. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong window. I think I want to be here. So I'm logged in now as Michelle Hintz, and the test case that we were given was that so she is part of a department, and the deal was she was not able to see this RNI prior to our changes being in place. And the issue is that this RNI, if we go in and look at it, it references a study that is for the department for which she is a department viewer. And prior to this, she could not see this RNI because it would because it didn't recognize the connection with the study. So our update to the security policy to enable her to see that is working, because now she can see this RNI. So yay. We're still waiting on testing for that one. Once that's done, we'll have to reapply the same change to Dev 9.2, and then we need to advance it to test. So I don't know that that can move to done yet, because I think we have to move that all the way up to production before we count it as done. But I'm going to close this. And I think the final one is to apply the base changes to... No, we already did the base changes. Are we done through everything? Let me see. That's department viewer. CTSI views. Oh, okay. I think we might be done. So I'm going to call that good.